So let's talk a little bit more about that synergy and how it relates the torso to the legs. So we're going to look at this guy a little bit more. And as we think about the muscle fibers coming across his torso this way, contracting to allow him to turn to his left, what we're also doing with this silk ruling is we're using adductors in the leg, we are using hip flexors, we're using internal rotators in this area of the body to allow this motion from up here all the way down, not just to the insertion of like the obliques, keeping this rotation in the upper body, but we're synergizing what's going on in the lower body so that that pulling in of the leg at the same time is matching the rotation of the body. So this coming down here matches what's going on with the leg here with the closing of this left quad. So with this turn to the left, we have a spiral through the leg coming up, rotating that leg in, flexing the hip, closing that quad, not closing it as in it not being open or able to be changed, but closing it as in making it a smaller angle between the hip and the leg. So on the front side of the body, across this way, we have contraction, right? As we look at the other side of the body, as we talked about before, we have this stretching and expansion, and that's true of those same muscles down toward the hip. So your adductors, the things that should be pulling your leg in closer to you, closer to midline, are stretching. You have your hip flexors, which are also elongating, and you have your internal rotators that instead of rotating the leg inward are relaxing and being stretched out so that the leg can externally rotate. So what's going on in this quad is the opposite of what's going on in this quad. Just like what's going on in the muscle fibers going this way is the opposite of what's going on with the muscle fibers going this way. And we can jump over to this other guy and have the same conversation in reverse. So just like his right side is coming forward closer to his left side, so his right shoulder is the distance between his right shoulder and his left hip is shortening on the front. What's happening on the back is the opposite, right? So you have this cross-body relaxation of the muscles going from the right shoulder down toward the left hip. So these muscle fibers all running in this direction are elongating. We had a closing of the left quad, which allowed the activation of the adductors, the internal rotators, and the hip flexors. But on the back side of the hip, what's happening is instead of things being activated, they're being elongated and stretched. So you're getting the extensors, the abductors, and the external rotators are all being lengthened here and allowing the leg to internally rotate. And the opposite of that is that this left shoulder is getting closer to the right hip on the back side. So you have these muscle fibers shortening. You have the activation of muscle fibers, so like the glute max coming down this way, also runs in that same direction. So it's a really excellent continuation muscle all the way through, which allows for extension of the hip, external rotation, and abduction with the muscles of the leg here activating, allowing the foot to do this outward spiral, or the leg to do that outward spiral. So when we talk about silk reeling through the torso, you can see that it's a motion that connects all the way, as the saying goes, from the feet, where the power is generated, directed by the waist. So this connection of where these fibers cross, continuous from the upper body to the lower body. And then it's manifest in the hands, which we'll get into later, based on the structure of the body. So you have to have good structure through the spine, good alignment to allow this rotation to happen in a way that is maximizing the rotational quality of it instead of fighting to maintain stability because your structure is not well aligned. So at this point, it may seem like silk reeling is not really that different from the motion in many martial arts or many other sports for that matter, because there's rotational motion in a lot of sports. If you think about a boxer throwing a punch, then there's rotational motion for sure. That's connecting the lower body and the feet to the ground all the way up through the rotation of the torso as that punch is coming out. And that's true. Yes, rotational motion is something that's useful. You see it a lot in nature. You see it a lot in many sports because it's so powerful, because it's so useful in generating power from the body. Something that sets it apart in Tai Chi from other sports and other martial arts, the reason why it is so key in Tai Chi is that it's a way to synergize the motion of the body so that you don't have parts of the body fighting against what you're trying to accomplish, which is something that happens very easily if you're not really attuned to your body. What's going on is you have parts of your body that are fighting what you're doing instead of working with what's going on. And unless you're really getting into the details of what's going on internally in your body as you're moving, you're probably not going to tune into those aspects of what's going on in your body. Additionally, the way that this is applied is it's done in a way that allows for listening to what's happening from external forces. So it's not just about generating power, because if you want to just generate power to do a strike or something, then do MMA, do boxing, they can really teach you how to generate an amazing strike that generates a lot of force. The thing that we're wanting to do with Tai Chi is not just generate force, but to generate force in a way that still allows us to maintain the structure that we're trying to maintain so we can control our center, maintain our balance, and listen to what's going on both within ourselves and outside of ourselves. So in push hands, for example, if you can generate a lot of force, but you can't listen to what your opponent's doing, what their force is doing to your body, and they can listen to what's going on, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to overcome your power, your force, because what they're doing is not just generating force. They're able to understand how to apply the force that they're generating to what you're doing and how to absorb the force that you're generating into their frame so that they maintain their center, they maintain their balance, they maintain control of the situation. It's really about maintaining a really strong listening skill, not just generating force. This is very largely where the rotational force in Tai Chi differs from the rotational force that you encounter in other martial arts or in other sports, is because there's a listening component, there's an internal awareness component that extends beyond your awareness of what's going on within your body. That's kind of the first level of listening, to listening to what's going on outside of your body. So with weapons training, that can be useful for helping you understand how you interact with other objects. And then in push hands training, that helps you understand how you interact with other forces acting on your body from an opponent. So if you found this conversation interesting and you really like the idea of how the musculature and the connective tissue of the body really support rotational motion through the body, then I would encourage you to look up a couple of things. One is called Myofascial Chains, and the other is called muscle slings. And if you just Google these phrases, you will find lots of images, lots of articles, lots of information, more from either from a physical medicine and bodywork perspective to a sports medicine and sports science perspective. But what's really fascinating about that is that this concept, this rotational motion, this using of the whole body to generate force all the way from the ground out to your hands, is something that has been useful in Taiji for quite some time. And the usefulness of this rotational force was found just through observations of how the body works most efficiently. And so now we're starting to see some research articles and more information and speculation about how the body's connective tissue and muscle fibers align in ways that allow for the support of the body and also rotational motion of the body. And this connectedness of the body that really supports the motion concepts of Tai Chi that have been around for quite some time. So let's come back to our original images here, and you can see the spirals coming from the feet up through the legs, through the body, and there's this connection all the way through, connecting the lower body to the torso or to the yao, the waist. And that rotation also continues across the body this way. So you see the same kind of cross-body pattern here, cross-body pattern here. And so this is why it's important to understand that when you're looking at these images, what you're seeing is kind of all paths shown at once, not really, but kind of, so that you have, rather than discussing that this would be a lengthening path and this would be a shortening path if he's rotating to his left, it's just shown the same on both sides. And that's why when you look at images like this, it's really important to have context. It's really important to have someone that can explain what all of that means, all those squiggly lines, and how they actually are applicable in physical motion, rather than just thinking about energy flowing through the body in spirally motions. And that's not to discount that concept, because it's a valid way of describing what is felt as the body's moving in these ways. But thinking of it that way doesn't necessarily give a tangible, accessible thought process of what's happening in the body as you're moving, as you're doing Tai Chi, as you're doing silk reeling. That allows you to understand kind of the mechanics of what your body should be doing. So some key takeaway points. 1, don't focus on chi, focus on intent. Focus on the intention of moving with the spirals, the rotation of the body. That will get the correct motion of the body, and the yi, that intent of movement, will lead the chi, if chi is something that you believe in and something that you want to incorporate into your practice. Remember, also in Tai Chi, we use Yi, not Li. So we use the intent to move, not muscular force. And when we're talking about muscular force, what we're talking about is not whether or not we're using muscles. It is how we use those muscles. And it should be in a coordinated way that allows large groups of muscles to activate at a lesser extent rather than small groups of muscles maximally contracted where we cannot change what we're doing as easily. So when we use muscular force, when we use our muscles to make our body move, which we have to do in order to make our bodies move, we do it with internal awareness. So we're listening to what's happening within our body, within our frame. We're maintaining good alignment. And we're using that good alignment to create a frame where those muscles can function at maximal efficiency. We're doing it in a way that allows us to listen to what's happening outside of our body so that, and when I say listening, I don't mean just listening with the ears, I mean listening with your sense of touch, proprioception, your ability to feel forces acting on your body, either from an opponent, from using a sword when you're doing sword form training, or just the force of gravity on your body. So we try to use our muscles in a way that is as smart as possible. And this is really where the idea of relaxation in Tai Chi, which we've talked about in previous videos, is so important, because it's very easy if you get too caught up in the idea of what the muscles are doing in the body to focus on the muscles rather than focusing on the intent of the movement, which includes that rotation, that silk rilling spiral through the body. So remember, in Tai Chi, you want to use as much muscular force as is necessary to accomplish your movement, but no more than that. You don't want to do a motion that's incredibly tense for all the reasons that we've talked about before. You don't want to do a motion that's too loose because it doesn't allow you to maintain your frame, especially against resistance. So using muscle in Tai Chi is all about balance, which is not surprising based on everything that we know about Tai Chi. And it's about a smart coordination of muscles. So that's all we're going to talk about in this video. I hope you found it very useful. I hope it makes sense a little bit more how the spiraling through the torso is supposed to work. I hope this helps connect why the framework of the body, the structure that you're training when you do Zhang Qigong is so important, because you need to maintain that correct axis of rotation. You need to maintain the correct structure so that rotation can happen without straining muscles, without putting joints at risk. Everything needs to be aligned well so that rotation is safe and rotation is effective. If you did enjoy this video or got something out of it, please share it with your Taiji friends, see what they have to think of it, try to start up some conversations around it, and see what you can learn about silk rilling and Taiji from your Taiji friends, and see what information you can teach them about silk rilling. Also, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also consider becoming a supporting member of this channel to help ensure that more videos like this will be made available in the future. Stay safe and healthy out there, and as always, thank you for watching.